What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sober Black Girls Club podcast. You know, J, Nicole, Katie, doing what we do, back in the building or in our different buildings because we're actually home. But either way, we're here getting into this conversation today. I think we're going to talk a little culture, course sobriety, and whatever else comes to our mind. So yeah, let's sit back. Katie, what's up? How you feeling?
You know, I didn't even tell you why. I came off the bus, so I take a bus into the city and then back into the city that I live in, and it's like a big bus. It's not like the general, like it's an express bus. I don't know if you're familiar with New York City, Chance. Why did I fall? Like bus? No, this is not funny. I fell, right? And I haven't felt like who falls? Like I don't fall. Like there's nowhere to fall at, right?
I fell recently and I was pretty embarrassed. I was home and I was on the floor hysterically laughing because I could not believe that I really fell, like on the ground, fell. It was crazy.
See, but that happened at home. I'm outside and it was raining and snowing. And I'm telling you, Jay, like generally, it just happened to me like years ago. I would have been canceled this. My knee is bleeding. I had to like call. First of all, I took down that bus's number because a lawsuit might be in progress. But I got up and I'm like, did I just really fall down on the floor in public off of a big, and this is not a regular bus. This is one of those big buses. Oh, and then I looked down and my slacks, like I was in court this morning, like scraped up, cut up. My knee is scraped. I look like a little child. Like I literally have a scraped knee at the age of 30. This is ridiculous.
How can you? Okay, I understand, but how can you expect me to not laugh? I mean,
you can laugh.
You're in one piece. You're in one piece, but the more details that came out, the harder it was starting to become for me. The slacks and they're tore up, the bleeding. That's not funny, but you really got hurt. So, guys, she's dedicated. She's still on recording the episode. Knee bleeding, pants busted. But you have the bus number, so
yeah, and like my knee is still bleeding right now because I don't even know what to do with this. I'm like, what do I even do with a scraped up knee? Like you take a shower?
I don't think you should take a shower. I feel like from just childhood knowledge, I feel like that's gonna burn. Just my thought.
Well, I gotta take a shower after. I gotta take a shower to go to bed. I can't go to sleep without a shower. But I feel like maybe I should go to CVS and get like some Neosporin. Right?
Definitely want to get something like that. It sounds like you were knee deep. Sorry, into a situation that definitely needs.
Okay, that was actually a really good one. Yeah.
Sometimes I can come through and it's not super corny. It's on point.
That was a good one. Knee deep. Yes, girl. My shit is great.
Okay, nails. Come through, nails. I see you, nails with the nails.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Okay, real quick before we get into it, I'm just happy because my worst fear. What is your worst fear when you think about you falling? What is it?
Me is my teeth getting knocked out.
Girl, mine too. So I'm happy that my teeth are in my mouth, that my nails are still on my fingers, that my wig did not come off, and that my phone did not get busted because everything came out of like my briefcase. It was like one of those scenes you see in like a sitcom.
Did somebody try to help you?
Yeah, I got one of the houseless people who were out in front of the store because the bus stops in front of CVS, and literally the dude that I always give money to, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He helped me get my stuff out, and then the bus driver was really upset. He was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and then he said, "Did you fall on the curb?" No, I fell because I missed one of your steps because the bus is too high. And granted, I did have a lot of bags in my hand, so I guess I didn't realize.
This is the lawyer. This is definitely the lawyer in you talking.
So I did not
specifics. No, it was actually the step on your bus that I missed because.
Now, can you see how he tried to avoid liability? It was the curb. No, it's not the curb. It was the bus. Okay, I fell off of the bus onto the curb. But he was smart. He was like, it was the curb. Like, no, you ain't gonna get
right. He probably had his phone recording. He had his voice note out. Like, was it the curb? Speak louder, ma'am. Was it?
Right.
Speaking to the mic.
Do you want me to call an ambulance? I said no. Okay.
No, who wants that bill?
Yeah, okay. But okay, we're really off topic right now, and I'm sorry, we're gonna get into it. But I hate when people, and I shouldn't say this. No, should I say this? I'm saying
Say it.
I hate when people fall. I hate when people fall and they just sit there. Like, get up! Like, you don't even know what's going on.
They could be in shock. I'm telling you, when I fell, I know I was home, but I was like, wow, I'm really on the ground. I haven't been like on the ground. This is crazy.
At home, was it off the steps?
Yep. It was bad. But I'm okay. And you're okay. And you made it back. And you are so committed. You are so committed to Sober Black Girls Club podcast.
And no one has a video or picture of me doing it because I got right up as soon as it happened.
You think they don't until you're tagged.
Imagine.
You think that we're going to see you on the shade room later.
All right, we get into it. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about how to stay sober after you fall off a bus.
Huh? Sorry.
Oh, after you fall off a bus. How do you stay to sobriety? Do you need 12 steps or steps? No. Steps and you? No. That was another good one.
That was a good one.
You had enough of the steps for today.
I had enough steps. Yeah.
Come through, J. Nicole, with the sobriety humor. Anyways, but on a serious note, guys, we are trying to talk about how to stay sober while being Black in the culture. Is that the same thing?
Yo, I just had to mute my mic to laugh. When I said Black, I was just joking. But the theme, it really is. It's like, how do we stay sober while still trying to like be in the culture? Because just because you're Black don't mean you're in the culture. Some of y'all just be.
What do y'all think? You think she's coming for me? Do y'all think that energy? Because
I'm not coming. No, I'm not coming from you. I'm coming from what is Will Smith's cousin's name? No, not real Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What's his name?
Oh, Carlton.
Some of y'all be acting with Carlton. Like, so not everyone who's Black be in the culture. So, and I think we can get into like more detail of what it means to like really be in the culture. But yeah, like, how do you stay sober when a lot of like, if you do like hip hop, rap music, you know, I'm definitely a trap girl. I love trap music, and it's has a lot to do with like drugs and drinking. And even though it doesn't trigger me, I think that it's quite normal that it would probably be triggering someone else. Like, it makes sense in terms of like going out. How are you able to do that? I know like a big thing, even though I'm not good at it, and I definitely know, Jay, you're not good at it. You know what I'm about to say? No,
but I want to hear it.
You know what I'm about to say? I know you do not know how to play spades. I know you don't know. Wow. Say you do. Say you do. Wow. Lie and say you do.
Hold up.
No, lie and say you do.
Hold up. I cannot believe that you just, wow, you're going really, and you know what's crazy is I've been playing spades since I was like 12.
Are you being serious right now?
I'm being 100% serious. How many books we have? Are we going board? Make sure you don't renege. Get off this table if you don't know how to play. What are you talking about? I don't know how to play spades.
Jay, you really know how to play spades?
I really know how to play spades. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best of the best, because I have stopped playing because of all of the seriousness. I have some friends and family that take it way too serious, and I don't have that kind of time. But I do know how to play. And a long story short, it's just like playing I Declare War with teams. But the fact that you came for me, I don't know. I gotta sit with that. That's a mess. I think he's gonna let you hear my voicemail. So since you heard my voicemail, now you're going to try to switch up on me and say I don't know how to play spades. Wow.
If you're just listening to this, I'm just giving Jay the side eye right now because I do not believe not one word of what you're saying.
We're gonna play spades right on this video, and they're gonna see us play right on YouTube. Watch.
No, I can't play.
Well, I'm gonna take a video of me playing, and I'm gonna share it on Sober Black Girls Club, and you're gonna see. Haters. Oh, it's your own people. That's crazy.
All right. So how do we maintain our sobriety while trying to still be in a culture, still be, cool? I don't know. Like, I know for me, I don't know. You answer it first.
I think it's tough. And the reason why is because even just people's comments. I made a video, TikTok a while ago, like it's probably been like 2 years now, where it was like, oh my God, you don't drink? Did you have a problem with drinking? But it's like, if someone's like, I don't eat mayonnaise, you're like, oh, did you have a problem with mayonnaise? It's like, no, I just don't drink. So I feel like we don't really respect that. And people, it's like, you're a unicorn or an anomaly if you say you don't. And then a lot of us, do you really want to explain? No. And then it's like, because it's your personal journey and your story. So if you're like, no, I'm not drinking tonight, or I'm good, I don't want to drink, it's like so much pressure that it could be a spiritual reason. It doesn't even have to be the fact that you're in sobriety or trying to maintain. You just don't drink. And we, because it's so glamorized, like you just said, whether that's in music or videos, social media, it's a glitz and glamour to it. So if you're out of that, then there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. This conversation is making me think about verses. And I have such a real mother effing problem with verses. And if you're not familiar with verses, it's basically an event. It was started during the pandemic when we were in quarantine. I mean, we're still in a pandemic. Some of us are still not in quarantine. Some of us are still in quarantine. And I believe it was created by, why do I want to say Dr. Dre, but I think that's wrong. Who created it?
It's Timberland and Swiss Beats.
Thank you, Jay. Wow, Jay is really showing her black card today. Spain.
And you trying to revoke it. So what you saying? Trying to revoke my black card? That's crazy.
Spain.
Nah, I'm not over that. It's too soon. Keep going with your conversation. I'm not over that.
All right. So, and it's an event that, takes place on an IG Live, and generally like two artists who probably were around the same era, they get together and they basically play like music back and forth. And I guess whoever has the crowd mostly like jamming, I guess, is the winner. But I don't really think there's any winner or loser. It's just like a big celebration, and they both have like bragging rights. And I started to think about how I'm trying to pick my word, guys. How I don't know the word I want to use, but let me get into it. So I remember the last verses I saw was Chaka Khan versus Stephanie Mills. And everyone knows that Chaka Khan has some type of history with substance abuse or alcohol. I'm not too sure which one, but she's talked about it. And it's just something that's like well known. Like it's just folks know about it. Like, folks know. And I couldn't believe that in this versus is sponsored by Ciroc, which Ciroc is created or was created or founded or just represented by Sean Diddy Combs Puff Love, whatever the F you want to call him. And in that versus, she was just surrounded by alcohol, and it was so clear that like she was intoxicated or some type of intoxication. It was clear that she wasn't her sober self. And Chaka Khan is like a freaking legend. Like I don't even be knowing a lot of like oldies because I'm like not from that era, but your legends. Like you just know people you're supposed to respect who have done so much for the community, done so much for like the music. And I just could not believe that the event, what do you call it? People who put on the event, event planners,
promoters, organizers.
would allow her to like be like that on stage. First of all, she was surrounded by alcohol. Why would you have alcohol near someone that you know has a past history or some type of history with substances? And I was really upset. I remember I posted it on Instagram, and then I had, you know, let me say something. You could disagree with me all you want. But on my page, what I says goes. So I posted that I think it's an embarrassment that like Chaka Khan is being made fun of and she's trending on Twitter. But the real clowns, in my opinion, are the promoters and people who put on the event and had her surrounded by alcohol, knowing that she has a problem. Like, it just shows a lack of respect. And also it just shows that it also shows that like folks are just so willing and so able to put money and profits and entertainment over one's wellness and health and sobriety.
What
and
do you think? Just to interject there a little bit, to play devil's advocate in this regard.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Right. What do you think about Chaka Khan though? And listen, Sweet Thing, that's one of my favorite songs, and she's dope, but making that choice to, this is your job. So we're talking about being a part of the culture or doing your job or what that comes with, and then putting yourself in those environments for a check, really, because that's what you're doing that for. For example, I was listening somewhere that Jess Hilarious was saying that she most recently did her first show, or maybe one of her first shows, sober. And she was surprised how well she did and how clear, because I feel like when you are a performer, whether that's a musician or an artist or whatever, alcohol and drugs, it goes hand in hand. So it's like, this is what I do to get that liquid courage, or I don't know what else other people are doing to get out there. So do you think that some of that responsibility is on the individual, or are you still stand that, hey, we can also play our part in helping someone not be in that situation?
I think that if we're talking about community, if we're talking about like unity, you know, constantly hearing like Black people don't stand up for each other. And I feel like when I hear stuff like that, like it's always using the wrong context. This is the context you're supposed to be using that for, right? Knowing that someone has a sickness, and I don't even really think of addiction as a sickness, but when I hear folks pass and how much they struggle with it, I can understand why, you know, it is being labeled as a sickness. And to me, it's like, this is not just someone who you know doesn't have a well-known history, and I feel like just the past you know stories I've heard, I don't think it's really all in her control. I think that like this is something she struggled with for a long time, you know. And I also think that the verses was like, first of all, this verses was meant to celebrate her. Like folks were like promoting it as like, this is not going to be like the usual verses where one person goes against this person. This is going to be a celebration. So if this is a celebration, why wouldn't you honor her by honoring her past and honoring the, you know, the things that we know she struggles with? And even if she did still would have chose to drink, right? I would have still felt better knowing that the event planners actually gave a F. Because I honestly feel like, especially in the Black community, the only time that addiction or substance abuse, and I am shaking my head for those who are just listening, is taken seriously, is when folks display really antisocial behavior. Like if they become paranoid or they become homeless, or you know they constantly lose jobs, that's when it's a problem. But you know, getting on stage and really, I'm sorry, embarrassing oneself is okay, right? Constantly drinking and fighting and fights breaking out and getting arrested, it's okay. It's funny, right? For entertainment. And then in 10, 20 years, when we see folk, you know, pictures of like past of former basketball players and former pageant winners on the streets, clearly, you know, due to drug addiction, we're like, oh my God, he went out bad. But when this person, I'm not talking about a specific person, you know, y'all can use Google, but when he or she was still, you know, in the culture, in society, you know, getting drunk and fighting and doing this, everyone thought it was funny. Everyone was laughing. And now that this person's on the street begging for money, you want to clown them. Oh, he went out bad. Oh, she went out bad. To me, that's just an embarrassment. That's just not community, in my opinion.
No, I hear you on that. I think it's true. We have to do better with that, but the overall point of what we're talking about is it's tough. It is really difficult to maintain. And I also think we can't even really say based on a certain age group, right? Because Chaka Khan is in a way different bracket than we are, and we're here. There's people younger and all together, but it's all about entertainment. And I think a lot of things don't really become that serious until that issue is in your backyard. So until it's your family member or your close friend or somebody like that that's strung out and people putting them on the shade room or sharing them. And not no shade to the shade room, but facts. I mean, it's people are blasted there and shown there or different things like that, like Delonte
And
West.
a lot of effing shade to the shade. All they do is embarrass Black people.
Yeah, exactly. And Black people love it though. Eat it up.
Exactly,
Go in there, be
exactly.
reading it and finding out all kinds of stuff. But that happened to Delonte West. He played for the Cavs. He played for the Mavericks. He was good, and then he ended up dealing with some mental health stuff, strung out and out there. And then once his video went like viral of him being out there is when people were really trying to help him. Now, again, this is all we see. We don't know who's trying to help who in the background, but we're talking about the majority. We celebrate with substances. So we're drinking, we're partying, we're doing all that. And I think it's really hard to say, nah, I'm good, I'm going to pass. When I actually, this is a funny thing, when I was going on the first date with Tanya, we distinctively said, she's like, oh yeah, we can get together on this Friday. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. You want to get drinks, appetizers, whatever, it'll be late. And I just went along with it. And I didn't say right then, oh, I actually don't drink. We just went. But then when we were there and she ordered like wine and I didn't order anything. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't drink. I'm sober. I don't drink it or whatever. It was fine. But I didn't say it straight up front. Like I felt like in my mind, if I'm like, nah, I don't drink, before you kind of get to know me or we have this conversation, you might think I'm boring or like, this is going to be a drag. Like, who wants to hang out with somebody that doesn't drink? But obviously it worked. We're still together, but still, that's one of those things where you have that kind of like, how do I fit in? How don't I?
Yeah. And how old were you when this happened? When y'all first got together?
I think I was like 27.
Okay, yeah, and that's pretty really really young. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like I just feel like that's a whole nother conversation. I want to bring something up, but I feel like dating, going on first drink, like first of all, going on first dates, and drinking is such a slippery slope. Like, I shared a story where I didn't come home for like 30 days. But then even like in those like lesser
That's a super slippery slope. That's
even like
I'm not even gonna come for you. I'm just gonna let you live.
Even in like lesser, like scenarios that are not that big, I feel like there's so many times even going on dates and people just getting drunk and just being so annoying and sloppy and so aggressive. Like, I don't know. I'm like, well, you know what? Let me just stop. I'm like, let me not go there. But yeah, I think on first dates, especially like dating, I have only dated white. I've only dated Black people, so from my experience, drinking is usually.
You're not going to be able to edit that out. I am going to make that a video clip, and I'm going to keep that in my back pocket and share that.
I actually am going to be able to edit that out. But anyways, in my experience of only dating Black people, I will say that alcohol and drugs oftentimes were involved. And even when people that I have dated didn't drink or normally do the type of drugs that I was doing, they were still always willing to allow me to do it and go get it. Like, it's just like, it's nothing. It's like, oh, do you take this? No, but if you want to go get it, you can go get it.
Do you think we can change this, or how could we change it, or what advice could we offer to someone who feels like that? What if you were the life of the party, your house, or what you do, and this is just kind of a part of your identity, and you still want to be a part of it? Heck, every time I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see all these card games that are created by Black people and such, like a lot of them are like, it's just, I don't know. It's really hard. I'm really haven't sat and thought about it until we started talking about, we were going to discuss it. It's embedded in the culture.
I know, but I feel like if more people like us, and it's the goal is not to get other people sober. Like that's not the goal. Like I'll be very honest. I don't want to. So let me backtrack. Yes, I want to help people who want to be sober get sober, but my goal in life is not to like don't drink and drinking is this. You're gonna go to hell. And this and that. I just feel like I don't have a place to do that, especially being Black in this country. Again, I will say this, like for Black people, two things are very prevalent. Like in two ways do we think that we can overcome our struggles and live a better life. And it's false, but the idea is that we can overcome the structural roadblocks in our way by either one, overproducing, so overworking, right? You know, and I definitely went that route at first. You know, I got a law degree, thought I was gonna be happy as hell, graduated, got a job, and I was miserable. Why? Because self-esteem and self-worth doesn't come from all those things. It doesn't come from producing. It comes from knowing. It's like, yeah, I got this law degree, but my self-esteem comes from me acknowledging that I am a very hard worker, me acknowledging that I am a goal-getter, me acknowledging that I am resilient, me acknowledging that I'm intelligent. For me, it's like getting this degree and getting that car was just like things I was checking off. Like, oh, I got this, right? And that's how a lot of Black people think, that if I keep on producing, keep on doing this, I'm gonna be happy. And then there comes a point where you realize, wow, I'm very unhappy. I'm so unhappy. I'm depressed. So that's one way. And then there's a second way. The second way is pleasure. Do you know how many Black people that I've met, and this wasn't my experience, but how many Black people that I met in the recovery space who, and again, when I bring up profession, it's not to be elitist and it's not to like close certain people out, because I'm gonna be honest with you. In a couple of years, I'm not going to be using my law degree. I think that a lot of times we get into professions because we think it's going to bring us happiness, and we think we're going to be, you know, prestigious and elite, and then we realize this is not even what I want to do. So I don't bring up these professions to be elite, but I bring them up to say that even when we do what society thinks is the most, I don't know, hardest work that we could have done, it still doesn't lead to that fulfillment that we think it's going to lead to. So one, yes, it is producing. We think if we become doctors, we become lawyers, you know, we become entrepreneurs, you know, we do this podcast, we do this TV show, we acting, whatever. We think that if we have all this stuff, we're going to be happy and blah. Right. And then the second one is pleasure. It's like, you know how many Black people that I met in this recovery room who, oh, that's why I kind of forgot why I brought up the whole doctor and lawyer thing, who are, right, in some type of profession, who didn't experience their first vacation until like they were 30 years old. That is mother effing ridiculous. But the reality is that's the reality for a lot of people, and also like poor white folks, right? Folks who don't have the income, especially growing up in families and growing up in the hood and the projects, to go to Disney World, to take a vacation to to Paris, to do things that American families do, American quote unquote white families do, right? We don't have that type of access to resources, and ain't nobody gonna say, let's be clear, I went on mad vacations growing up, right? My parents, my folks, they're immigrants. So for them, they already had this like a lot of pressure on them, of them feeling like they had to produce, and that traumatized, I'll speak for myself, that traumatized me a lot. So it's not even healthy. So that's not even healthy. So in terms of like pleasure, for a lot of folks who maybe, you know, in the low working class or even in like the poor class, who don't have the income and the resources to go on vacation, what are they gonna do for pleasure? Of course, alcohol and drugs are gonna be involved. What else are they gonna do? Look at each other, look in the mirror. What do you expect them to do? Right. And that's why when people be like, why do you always bring race? Race has a lot to do with everything. Are you kidding me? where the discrimination in schools and work employments and who gets what jobs and who gets to go to what school, and that clearly eventually leads to who get what resources. And when I say resources, I mean money. What do you like? Can connect the freaking dots? Of course, it has to do with sobriety. It has to do with how we view ourselves and how we are able to experience pleasure. And I know I'm ranting a lot, and I will say this: like recently, within the last like 4 or 5 years, there's been this big thing of like Black women, Black girls getting back into nature, right? You know how ridiculous that is? Black people, we're from Africa, like, and if you don't believe that, whatever, I'm not getting into that. I'm African. I don't know what y'all are, right? I'm African, and I'm talking about the descendants of people who came from Africa and were slaves in America. When they were back in Africa, they were all up in nature. They were hunting, they were skipping, and doing all these like these communal activities that they did. And then they came to America, and America basically ingrained into us from slavery to even today that we are nothing but work, that what we have to do is work, and that's the American dream. And it's not. And I'm so happy that a lot of our people, especially like Black women, are getting back into our roots, and our roots are planting and being with nature and being with animals. You know, and keep your Rottweiler and your Pitbull away from me. But Jay, you got a nice, cute little dog. Yes, yeah, you got a cute little dog. Like, you know, it's being with animals. Bring him up. You know, being with animals, like doing all those things is where we came from. But because, again, this country, literally, since the moment we stepped foot in this country, work, we lost a sense of identity of who we are. And that's a whole nother topic for a whole other thing. But I think that like if the wealth gap between disparities in this country don't improve, and Black families are not being able to bring in the income, right, to bring in the resources where people can experience pleasure in different ways, you know, go sky jumping, I don't know if that's a thing, but whatever, sky jumping, diving, doing all those things that everyone should have access to, our folks are going to continue to find pleasure in other people's harm and washing verses and being on a shade room drinking. You know, that's what a lot of, like, I know people who really, what you doing Friday night? Nothing, gonna be drinking and being on the shade room. I'm like, okay, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it is our experiences, what we were exposed to and not exposed to. So if the same thing, if this is what our parents did or our grandparents or cousins, uncles, whoever that we're growing up around, and you see these things, it's kind of what you see. They're laughing, joking, smoking cigarettes at the table, playing cards, just kind of like doing their thing. I remember eating watching my family eat a whole bunch of crabs, but also drinking beer. And so it was like crabs and beer. And I loved eating crabs and drinking beer. It was just a part of just like the experience and what we did, and just for, like you just said, pleasure. So that's a part of our culture. If you ask anybody, like, oh, you want to go eat crabs? And then they're like, oh yeah, we got to make sure we got some drinks too. Like, it's always to make sure we have the drinks too. I'm a big proponent of grief and just talking about that and tackling that on other platforms. And that's the thing I always say. When somebody's like, oh, my person just died, you be like, oh, cool. Oh, that's sad. That's messed up. I'm going to grab some drinks and come through. Or you want to go get some drinks. It's like, it's just like, what is there's another option. There's other things to say to somebody than, yeah, I'm gonna go get a bottle. This just happened. I'm gonna go get a bottle. I'm gonna go grab some weed. We gonna do this and that. It's like, it's just really embedded in our mind. So of course it's going to be glamorized for good or for bad times. It's just like, this is the best option for people and what we've known. So like you said, with us being able to talk about it and show that there's different options, and it's not always easy. Even just think about it. Like for me, the summertime is the most difficult time for me to remain sober or have less thoughts of wanting to drink, because it's like, dang, we about to be at somebody's house, chilling out on the deck, you know what I mean? Like drinking, let's do this. And I'm gonna be honest, I kind of feel sometimes that I robbed myself, even though I know by getting sober, I gave myself a better shot, but I'll be feeling kind of hating, like I stopped drinking before it got more cool. Like I was drinking when it was the basics. Like now you can do different stuff, like go to breweries or go wine tasting. Like I wasn't doing that. I was drinking underage, so I wasn't able to go to these places. I was only drinking in bars for a few years, 21 to 23, and that was it. So when I'm seeing all this new stuff come out, these hard seltzers and all this stuff that looks so cool, I'm like, dang, like, what's that taste like? You know what I'm saying? And so in the summer,
So many jokes could have been made, but I'm not gonna make them.
no, what is it? Because I said hard seltzer.
No.
What? Go for it. No, say it.
No. No. Mm-mm.
Thank you. But
You're
yeah,
welcome.
so I mean, it is hard because you can feel a little left out, a little situation. Just the other day, we had a family get together, and my brother was like, "Oh, should I bring a bottle of wine?" And I was like, "No, it's at my mom's house." So like, my mom doesn't drink, but she's also a minister. So he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot where we were going. I forget what he called it, but he said I forgot where we were going or whatever it is." But that's in his nature to bring a bottle. Let's, and he tried to calm it down because it was for a baby to say wine. But
It was a
what's
baby? Wait, what?
we were celebrating, my niece is about to be born, so we were
Oh,
celebrating
okay.
having a family dinner before that. And so he, instead of saying like I'm gonna bring a bottle of Henny or something like that, it was like I'm gonna bring a bottle of wine. So in his mind,
Got it.
that probably was a little better, but it's still like, just because we're getting together doesn't mean that there has to be an option for drinking. So again, it goes back to our experience and what we're used to, what we're familiar with. And I think it's really hard to get out of that. How do you become the person that's like, well, I've done it now, so people know. Like, they'll ask me, like, "Oh, is it cool if we?" And I don't care. I'm not that kind of person. You can bring alcohol to my house. That's just me, because I'm not in that space in my journey where that kind of stuff bothers me. It doesn't bother me at all. It just really doesn't. But in the summer times, things like that is where it's a little more like, okay, like we can kick up, put some music on, do this and that. And it's like, that drink does look kind of good. It is kind of hot out here. And I don't really do too much. I'll do like mocktails, things like that if I'm out somewhere, maybe, but like just on a regular, like at home, like I don't really do like non-alcoholic beer and stuff like that. Not because I think it's bad. It's just not something that I do now. Early on in my journey, I would, but now, nah, not really.
Yeah, honestly, like hearing you, I'll be honest, there's only one thing I do miss about, even though people be like, really, Katie, that's so nasty, it's gross. I'm like, really? I won't lie, I do one of the things I do is have it's I don't know, is this a PG podcast? I know, I think it's what's the rate on this podcast?
Just spit it out. What are you gonna say?
I honestly, I really do miss having drunk sex. I'm not gonna lie. I just won't lie. And people are always like, Katie, I'm like, that's so nasty. But I'm like, okay, no, your experiences of throwing up is disgusting, right? But like, not everyone, that's not the case for everyone. But that's the only, like, for the summer, like, especially summer romance, when you just out, it's stuff like that. That's the only time I ever would be like, it would be nice. And even though a lot of people, like a lot of sober sex positive advocates say that sober sex is great and it just takes some time to getting used to, and honestly, the advocates that I know of in my head, they are like really, out there, and they make it seem fun. But in my head, I'm just like, okay. I don't see it yet, and it's okay. But that's the only time I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, a drink probably would have made this feel better. But you know what I was thinking? Like the other day, I don't know if you know who Snooty Wild is.
Yeah, so I've been seeing about it. I didn't know, but I knew that the person is some.
So yeah, so again, my favorite music is really trap music, and trap music, like, they're talking about coke, they're talking about bricks, they're talking about drinking, they're talking about having sex, they're talking about all this stuff that they're talking about getting money. They're talking about, trap music doesn't really involve like murder or anything like that, but they are talking about pretty explicit stuff. And I go between trap music and Afro beats. And Snooty Wild, he created this song called, he just passed away, so rest in peace, right? He just passed away, he's a rapper. And he created this song called the Yayo when I was I think when I was in college or high school. And it is about coke. And I'm like, yo, and this is really one of my favorite songs. Like, this is one of my favorite songs. And even though I listen to it, and in my head, I'm like, it would be cool, usually when I'm out in Miami, this, the song is blazing, like this would be a nice time. But I know that, like, I know better. I know what the end result is gonna be. And it's gonna be like, this is gonna be a disaster. So I do, I guess, like, I don't have a lot of difficulties, listening to trap, but I will say I was struggling when I found out he passed away, and I was blasting the song Yeah, which is really my song. It is really just like the song. And I was just thinking about my first time in Miami, which is when I actually started using like other types of don't go to Miami. Actually, no, I think, well, anyways, don't go to Miami. So when I started to go to Miami is when I really started to like explore outside of like alcohol. And I don't know, I feel like over the past 2 weeks, like since hearing about his death, and every morning I'm blasting the song to get ready, I kind of did have like some thoughts of like, if I was in Miami right now, it would be lit. It would be lit. It would be lit. But I also know the repercussions would be horrible. Would probably lead and like to an arrest, to getting fired, to like just all these fights, to like missing appointments, to missing my obligations. It would just be a disaster. So I'm happy that I still have the mind frame to like play it through. I never want to act, I never want to lie or act like, I think it's okay to say, yeah, and it's not that I really miss it, the substance. It's just I miss like the scene around the substance, like the scene around it. Everyone just being so free and like loose, like hippies, and just like, but it can get dangerous. So I still have the mind frame to like play it through. So even when I do have like a thought in my mind, it's always like, remember where you ended up in 2018. Don't go there. But I still listen to whatever I want to listen to.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's important for us to be able to be that honest with ourselves and show people that you can't just think that, oh, you don't miss this or you don't miss that. It's a reality. And I think it could actually be a little more dangerous if you don't acknowledge it. That's just from my experience. I'm not 13 years sober, but so what? I still think about, I like drinking. That's the thing.
Girl. Yeah.
I like drinking. I enjoyed it. It's not something that if I was able to do it responsibly and didn't have an issue with that, I would do it. You know what I mean?
I always tell people, sorry. No, your mic is like going in and out. I'm confused. I'm like, should I talk or should I not talk? But no, I'm happy, like you said that. I feel like sometimes people have to be real. People have to be. I'll be honest. At the end of my drinking, it just wasn't fun anymore. And I feel like even now, at this point, even 2 years out, drinking is just not what it is, what it used to be, right? So I don't even get drunk anymore. The last time I did it, I did not get drunk. I get bloated, like I get really big stomach issues. So for me, drinking is not something that like is something that I kind of even want. I feel like it's gonna hurt. Like all I think about is pain when I think about like alcohol nowadays. But I'm happy that like people can be real, like just to like act like folks don't miss the lifestyle or the life, especially like everyone has nostalgia. You just think back to like good times. I think that's pretty normal, especially you. And one of these episodes, I really want to get deep into your story because I feel like it is important. Like I do want to focus more in the club overall with I want to focus more on like young folks in high school and in college who might be having a drinking problem or experiencing addiction, and not to get them necessarily to stop, but just to put some type of effort into their, well, if addiction, yeah, stop. But the focus of me saying that I would like to put focus on younger folks is not to say don't drink, don't do drugs, and don't do this, but it's to one, teach them how to do it responsibly. Like look what irresponsible drinking looks like. Look what things happen, you know what I mean? And I feel like for most people, drinking problems, addictions, it's a progress. Like I know for some pathways, people really believe truly believe that it's in their gene. It's how they were born. I was not born into addiction. I don't come from a family history of it. And I don't come from an internal family history of it. I do come from an external family history in the sense that our ancestors who were enslaved, many of them did face drinking problems and addiction, even though that's an untold story. But our ancestor Frederick Douglass and many others did experience addiction because that's how they, tried to escape from all the violence that they were experiencing, right? So in that sense, I do come from a history of addiction, but immediate family, I don't. So for me, I don't believe that I was born into this. I think that it is something that gradually happens, and that the more times you do it and the manner you're doing it and what you're using it for can lead to an addiction. And I can clearly pinpoint to where my addiction started, because it wasn't too long after that I decided I need to stop. I decided I couldn't live like this. Like, this is just not me. Like, I couldn't live, with the whole switching jobs, apartment. I couldn't do all that, right? So I think that there needs to be a focus. I know in the recovery realm, they don't put a lot of focus on young folks. It's just like, you want to wait until they get a problem. You want to wait until they develop addiction. Like, why? Especially with that new show now that's out, Euphoria. You watch it?
I haven't watched it, but I was hearing people that were like seeing people's comments and talking about it and how they feel about it. But I agree with you. I think the focus should be, a lot of it should be on the younger people too. And like you said, I'm not someone who goes around telling people, oh, you should be sober, you shouldn't drink, it's so bad for you. No, I would tell people sometimes, I'm kind of jealous that you can do this and that you can do this responsibly. So I miss drinking, but I don't. I'm sorry. It's facts. I don't miss obviously the bad things that come from it and the irresponsibility, but to say that I'm like, man, I'm done work, I'm gonna go get a drink, like that I don't have that experience as a professional adult. I didn't know happy hours with coworkers. That none of that happened for me. So it's like sometimes I do feel a little bit like, man, that's kind of, here or there. But at the end of the day, I'm grateful, super grateful for my choice. And I would prefer my sober life where I know everything that happened yesterday. I know what's going on. I don't feel sick. I'm not wasting opportunities. I know I can represent myself the best, because truthfully, when people ask me about why I became sober and what I did, I always say I wanted to be the best version of myself. And I know for a fact I could not do that drinking. That's it. So I don't necessarily say, oh, I'm an alcoholic or this and that, but I will say I had a problem with drinking, and I do not want to find out about that the hard way. So I'm going to just say, I don't like that. That was not a good time in my life. It was just, I proved to myself multiple times, this just is not a part of your journey, kid. Like, you can't be who you want to be and be all these great things and be drinking. I just don't think that. I proved to myself. So for people out there that's going through that and trying to maintain their sobriety or their sober life and their decisions in the culture, you got to find more communities like this. That's really a fact. I think is more of being proactive to find where you do fit in and less resentment about where you no longer fit in right now.
Yes, I totally agree. And also, wait, I wanted to ask you a question. I don't know if it's personal, but does your wife, I don't think it's personal, but does your wife drink?
She does, but not enough. And I'm just joking because I tell her all the time, I'm like, why don't you drink? Like, have drinks. But actually, I'm sure she doesn't mind me saying this, but was in a previous relationship where alcohol was a problem. So coming out of that relationship, hoping and praying for someone that didn't drink responsibly like that, and then think it's a sick joke when you get matched up with sober Sally. This is not what you didn't mean that much. Like, I didn't mean completely. She says this all the time. So she does drink. Like, she'll have a glass of wine out or like have a drink here and there, but it never really was a big part for her. So it's not so much of a loss in that regard, if that makes sense. But plus, you always get a designated driver. So they gotta worry.
And I was gonna say, so that's another thing. Like you said, like, folks have to create community. The thing is that there's not that many communities. So I feel like with SBGC, it was such a big thing, because a lot of the women, and again, not all, but there's some women who are like, you know, houseless and really had to like rebuild their lives, and that's okay. I don't think any of us like our stories are not going to be the same, and everyone has their own story, and it's all, they're all beautiful, right? But I think a big part of it was that a lot of the women in the club, they're working women. They go to school, they work, they live everyday lives, they have kids, right? And again, because generally in our community, you have to be down bad, like, you know, be experiencing some like, you know, deranged paranoia attitude, or, you know, be on the subway and making faces for folks to be like, you need to stop drinking. So the fact that there's this concept where it's like, we know we have a drinking problem, and even though we're not the face of recovery and sobriety, we're not the face that people are talking about, the fact that we're still using our autonomy and thinking ahead and saying like, I'm still going to do something about it, I want to do something about it. It's a big deal. It is a huge deal. The fact that no one is telling you, and in our families, and this is a general statement that I'm making, you know, I used to always think that I didn't know anyone who had an addiction until me, right? And then when I came out with SBGC, I had friends tell me, oh, my dad, this and that. And I'm like, wait, Mr. blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, yeah. I'm like, wait, what? He didn't look like he had a problem. But, and that's just our community. We literally just keep on floating with our problems. You know, I've heard multiple people say things like, you know, I'm depressed, and that's okay. It's like, it's not okay. Like, you should get help for it, right? But I hear that in and out of our community. I'm depressed, I have anxiety, and that's just life. You know, people are not. I think now we're doing it and we're getting better at it, but I don't feel like our community is so great at like admitting that they need help for something, with something, right? Admitting that they're suffering from something, admitting that like they're not where they're not mentally and spiritually and emotionally where they should be or want to be. Because on the outside looks good, then who cares about the inside? But the inside cares a lot. So I feel like I understand a lot of people. Like, for me, I'll be so honest with you, like I love SBGC. However, because this is a new concept, and again, this is a new concept of saying that you don't have, so we don't endorse a pathway, but we don't endorse any pathway, right? All pathways are welcome. And we're also saying like, you can do other things but the 12 steps and still be sober. You can still practice harm reduction and be a welcome in this club. We're saying all these things that weren't used to be said in the recovery community. We're basically saying that I don't have any interest in telling people how to get sober. I just want them to know about the different pathways and us to get together and talk. That's my goal. That's what I think is important. Again, another different idea. You know, when people be like, I just can't believe that like you guys are not doing this and that. I'm like, well, why do we have to do that? Who said we had to do that? Like, why don't you understand that everything we do was from an idea, a belief from someone else, and you can make up your own beliefs and ideas, and you can make up your own groups. So that's what I'm getting at. There's not that many groups where all of us are in the same place. Like, we're nationwide. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, can you imagine how many lives probably would have been saved from a lot if there was more flexibility and just being able to adjust and create space for people to be creative in their healing? Because that's so restrictive. And that's why even when it comes to certain things, religions and such, people don't thrive, because it's the same thing with being a parent or being a coach. Everyone is not going to respond the same, and everybody needs something different. The goal can be the same, absolutely, but how we get there, that's got to be flexible. We have to create that space. So shout out to you for creating that space and doing it unapologetically.
But Jay, I'm saying that because I'm encouraging other people to create their space. Like, I live in New York, and I have, don't get me wrong, I am fulfilled in my relationships, my friendships, right? I have friends who are great. A lot of them who are great. No, they are great, right? They're awesome, right? But I do miss like the queer scene in New York. I love like going out to New York City and hanging out with other queer people. And those are not the people who are generally in the club that I hang out with, right? And that's great. But I do miss the scene that I was once a part of before the pandemic, like that I'm not no longer a part of. And I do miss it, right? And I remember like 2 weeks ago, I went out and I didn't drink and like do drugs. Like clearly I didn't. Or was it not? It was, I'm lying. It's not 2 weeks ago. I think I told you that week, whatever that weekend was. And even though I didn't like do drugs, I didn't drink or anything like that. It just was like, how awesome would it have been if like all of us were sober right now? It would have been so good. It would have been amazing. And like I wish I had like a queer New York City sober community. I really do. And I think
it just means we gotta create it. Offline, and that's something that I have been thinking about as well too. So we got to talk about it. I mean, sure, it doesn't have to be on your shoulders or on the same people to continue to just make spaces, but if it's something that's there and there's a need and a vision that you can see it, like imagine that, like you said, imagine that world where it's like, all right, it's Friday night, Saturday night, whatever, we going out, we're going to this club, but I don't even really want to say what my vision is. I don't want to say it.
No, say it, because the truth is they don't even have to be sober, but we're just not drinking tonight. Like, I don't even need people to be sober. Or like, you know what I mean? But just tonight.
Or a place, or even a place that you cannot come into if you are under any type of influence, and we just got to have it do it. But it could be really dope and something that could really happen, where I think it's definitely a need, and it could be out there, but we don't know about it. So it must not be that many if we're talking about it.
But that's the thing. That's another thing. Who suffer? And I don't know the statistics, so I'm not gonna make up statistics. I know that during the pandemic, gay men of color were dying in rapid rates due to overdoses. Especially, I know it was a big thing in California. So I don't know the New York numbers. And usually, you know, drugs addiction is one thing. However, there is like an alcohol to drug pipeline. Like there is a pipeline. I might not have had a drug problem. However, I still don't do drugs because that would lead me, even if I did it sporadically, that would eventually lead me back to alcohol. Even though one folk that may do this may have an addiction with this and not with this, sometimes it's just that connection, that like pipeline thing, right? Like that, and not everyone goes through that, but I know for me there is. Like if I do certain things enough times, I'm eventually gonna be like, okay, maybe I should like, you know, come down with alcohol. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the thing that I've experienced so many times. So I know for a fact the queer community struggles with alcohol and addiction, especially Black queer people. Oh my gosh, we have to suffer with being, and let me use my words very wisely. If it wasn't for these structures, I wouldn't suffer, like my Blackness, and not me specifically, but in general, queer people, oh child, it's just so much. Okay, what? Being Black, right? That's one thing, right? That's something that people can experience racism and prejudice for, right? And then, especially if you're a woman, you know, all the sexism and misogyny we go through, especially in Black households, And then if you're queer,
trifecta.
Like you might as well. I don't even want to say anything. I have to shoot my words wisely. So I don't want to say anything that's gonna just like to discourage anyone. And I don't know your experience. I know my experience, which wasn't that bad because someone else came out before me in the family, and it was just what it was. But it was hard. It was scary. It was a lot. So of course, why wouldn't queer folks struggle with substances? They do. Like they do. I think that a lot of us are just like, I can understand. Like, how can I tell queer, and a lot of, especially for men, I don't know the statistics on women, and I don't know why. I think because for our Tuesday meeting, you know what, let me not even say that. I'm just more familiar with the male statistics in the queer community, and I just know that oftentimes when I heard stories, you know, trigger warning, suicide was involved, multiple overdoses were involved, like life-threatening experiences were involved. It's a lot. So there's substance issues addiction, substance problems is definitely a big thing in the queer community. Unfortunately, I just don't think that they're being given adequate advocacy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I don't think that enough is being done for them.
Well, it's a start here, and I think it's been a dope conversation. And if you guys could believe this, can you believe that we actually set a goal to talk for 30 minutes? 45 at the max. And 45, it's 45. Well beyond 45.
All right, well, we're gonna have to call it an episode.
No, we love it. We love it. We're gonna come back. We always come up with different topics, and let us know what you're thinking, how you're feeling the show, something you might want us to talk about, whatever. We'll definitely try our best. We're loving it. We appreciate you guys vibing. Katie, you want to leave them with anything else?
Okay, I do want to say this. I want to say one, I don't think, like, well, not I don't think, I know. Nothing is ever temporary. And I always tell someone that if you're on a sober journey and something like, you know, quote unquote, triggers you, you don't have to feel bad about that. Like, you're literally rewiring your nervous system. And, like, we don't even talk about these things. Like, we just, oh yeah, you just won this way and this is what happens. No, like, when you drink and do drugs for a certain amount of time, a certain length of time, your whole body needs rewiring. And there's certain things that you may not be able to do. I know I hear oftentimes people say, like, yeah, I thought I was an extrovert and now I'm an introvert. Okay, that's cool, but that's not the case for everyone. I was an extrovert before and I'm extrovert now. However, at the same time, I had to admit and acknowledge that there's certain things I just couldn't do early on. Like, one, drink mocktails, you know, two, you know, mess with FUCK people. People who just trigger me, like, I had to cut them all out in the beginning. Now I will literally read you. In the beginning, I just didn't have the strength to even be in any type of altercations and arguments. You won. Like, I'm leaving. And it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? You can always get back to who you were if that's who you want to be. Even though I think the person that you will become once you are sober and you're able to, like, rebuild your life in a way that you want to will even be better than who you were, but you'll have the opportunity to say, you know what, I do want to still do this. I still want to listen to trap music. I still want to go to paint and sip. And it's fine because I'm not triggered. You know what I mean? You'll have the opportunity to really define what triggers you, what not, what doesn't, what you need to do today, what you can do today, but you know in your brain you might be able to do it in the future. Nothing ever is permanent. So just go with the flow and listen to your body. I guess that's all I have to say.
We cannot end it any better than that, guys. Make sure you drop a comment if you're checking this out on YouTube. Leave us a review over on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Another episode of Sober Black Girls Club in the books. Yeah, peace.
Bye.